Hoje não é Ryan 3000. Ok, my friends? Hoje é a mulher dele. Esposa, noiva, namorado, não sei. É a Hailey. Hailey 3000. Estou usando Hailey Penn. O vídeo dela é I read Stephen King books for a week again. Então ela leu os livros do Stephen King por uma semana. Acho que é um livro por dia, né? De novo. Então ela já fez esse desafio. Vamos ver? Eu não achei nenhum vídeo, cara, pra ver. Então esse aqui já tava salvo pra mim assistindo em vídeo. Então é isso. Tá bem? Nossa, hoje meu YouTube tá com as recomendações tenebrosas. Let's go, ok?
If you were to stop a stranger on the street and ask them to name an author,
Excuse me?
Se você está numa rua e pergunta para um estranho sobre algum autor, escritor, né, de livro,
Could you just name an author?
I'd bet good money they'd say Stephen King.
eu aposto um bom dinheiro que vão dizer Stephen King.
Stephen King?
People have named him the best living novelist of our generation, and with over 65
Mano, o cara escreveu muito livro, né? Vou parar de pausar, mas o cara escreveu muito livro.
best-selling novels, I can see why, but as someone who doesn't like horror, I thought I'd put that to the test and see if someone like me could like Stephen King. So for the next week, I'm going to read nothing but his books, and we'll see if I get the hype.
It seemed to me that there was an underlying assumption about popular fiction that if everybody reads it, it can't be very good.
I started the week by taking down every Stephen King book that I own, and let's see if you can guess which one I'm going to read first.
About
And see if someone like me could like Stephen King. So for the next week, I'm going to read nothing but his books, and we'll see if I get the hype.
It seemed to me that there was an underlying assumption about popular fiction that if everybody reads it, it can't be very good.
I started the week by taking down every Stephen King book that I own, and let's see if you can guess which one I'm going to read first. To help you narrow it down, I've already read these. I'm very scared to read these, which leaves us with Mr. Mercedes. I think that this one would be more of a
O pessoal fala muito bem desse livro, Mr. Mercedes.
crime thriller with horrific elements, in which case I think I can handle that. In which case I have been handling that because I'm actually 244 pages into this, which is pretty wild because I kept meaning to get this open
Ah, não são muitas páginas, não, 244.
clip, and then I just kept reading. It got really good. This book is following two perspectives. One is Bill Hodges, who is a retired detective, and when you open up the book, he's watching TV and he is pretty bored with his life, and he's kind of on the edge of wanting to unalive himself. When talking about Stephen King books on YouTube, I'm gonna have to use a lot of code language, okay? And the other perspective we're following is Brady, who is Mr. Mercedes, and Mr. Mercedes is the man who stole a Mercedes-Benz and drove it through the state fair, and that was one of the last cases that went unsolved when Bill Hodges, the detective, retired. And then he gets a letter from Mr. Mercedes basically
Você vai falar o livro todo? Pode falar, eu não vou ler mesmo.
goading him into figuring out who he is. And now we've been switching back and forth between each character, and the stakes are getting higher and higher and higher as they chase each other around. Sometimes his books start off a little slow for me, and it might just be because it's such a different style from what I normally read that it takes me a second to read the third person POV and the names and the places and just the style that he writes in. But then you hit a stride and it's hard to even film updates in between because I just start reading it. One of the things I forgot about his writing style is how he talks about women, which is really not my favorite thing at all. I actually really dislike it, and it's always jarring, and it just feels so outdated and old school. Hopefully it's old school. It's very demeaning. It's always about their bodies, and maybe he would say he's just writing the characters, but why do all your characters happen to think like that? Seems like it's coming from somewhere. And another thing I always forget about his books is that you think Stephen King, you think horror. Maybe you picture The Shining. Maybe you picture a jump scare in a movie. But with his books, they're always psychological, way more so than I ever remember. He really goes into the psyche and the background and the life story of a person who would steal a Mercedes and drive it into a crowd of people. And that's horrific enough. I think this might be the scariest one I've read by him. Runner-up would be Misery, which Misery didn't really scare me. I remember thinking, this one is pretty gross. Let's keep reading. This is so random, but I started watching the movie
Então ela tá lendo da metade pra frente, né?
Stuck in Love. It's a rom-com and it's set over Thanksgiving week, which it is for me right now. And there's this reoccurring theme of the guy in the movie loving Stephen King, and they keep showing his bookshelf, which is just such a crazy coincidence. Something I only noticed because I'm filming this video, but I've read 20 pages since the last clip, but those pages were tough. It was the type of thing where you just kind of like make this face the whole time and you like kind of wish you could just stop reading it a little bit. It wasn't scary, it was just like horrific sad type of thing. I more so like the mindset of the detective and how he's gonna find this guy, and I really am hoping for some vengeance, if I'm being honest. I'm sitting here taking a break from reading Mr. Mercedes, turn on Stuck in Love again to finish it because sometimes I watch movies in parts. And they don't just mention Stephen King. Stephen King makes a cameo in that movie. He actually calls the kid.
Hello? Is Rusty there?
What are the odds of me filming this video and then watching that movie? It feels so crazy.
This is Stephen King.
It's the next day and everything in this book feels like it is coming to a head. The two separate POVs that we've been seeing the entire time are finally actually interacting. Well, not quite, but they're getting very close. So it feels like suddenly the book has just picked up speed. I'm gonna finish it right now. I feel like it's gonna be one of those things where you just open it and you don't move until you finish it because I need to find out what's gonna happen. I'm in that phase of
É o cachorrinho tranquilo, hein?
reading where I'm not fully back into the world yet and I'm still hearing all of my other thoughts about other projects and things I need to get done. I need to sink into the book. I remember a few years ago there was a new Stephen King book that came out called Holly, and I wanted to read it because it was a new Stephen King release, and then I found out it was about a character from the Mr. Mercedes series. I'm not sure how many books are actually in the series yet, but I finally met this character Holly and I knew that she was very beloved, but now I'm seeing why, which is really fun, and I'm very excited to finally get the context needed to read an entire book about her, because although Stephen King writes about certain women in a very
Ah, então esse livro novo do Stephen King é... Stephen King. Sei lá, Stephen King. Ela fala Stephen King. É o nome lá. E essa pessoa tá relacionada nesse livro aí da Mercedes. Aí, senhorita Mercedes, sei lá qual que é o nome do livro. Nossa, minha memória tá muito ruim.
derogatory manner. He's also very good at writing sad women in a very compelling way, so interesting combo he's got going for him. I finished Mr. Mercedes a few days ago and I've been sitting on this review because I really could not understand how I was feeling about it. The start of this was slow and then the middle picked up pace a ton and it was the most enjoyable. And then whenever I thought we were hitting the climax where it would be the most fast paced, you know how I said Holly was this character that was getting introduced? I feel like he started giving Holly backstory when I thought we were getting to the climax of everything culminating. So then it slowed down for me a lot and then everything happened, which was fast paced again. So really only the middle was an enjoyable time. Honestly, I think I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars. I haven't really been thinking about it since, and I didn't really connect to the characters. Since it's already a genre that's out of my wheelhouse, I feel like it has to be the best of the best for it to be a good book.
Sempre fala aqui, esse negócio de conectar personagens que ela tá falando aí, que não conectou, alguma coisa assim. Mano, um livro brasileiro lá, Cortiço, do não sei o que Azevedo. Mano, eu quitei do livro. Faz 2 anos. 2 anos atrás eu tava lendo esse livro. E aí, na verdade eu acho que não tem 2 anos, não. Tem 1 ano e pouco. Não chega a ser 2 anos, não. Tava lendo esse livro e ficava apresentando um monte de personagem. Eu entendi que a história é cortiço é por causa disso, porque é um cortiço, vai mostrar um monte de personagem. Mas eu não entendia. Eu não entendia, não me assimilava, não vinha na minha cabeça. Entendeu?
Book to me, whereas like any literary fiction or romance book could be pretty good because I just like the genre as a whole, so it's already impressing me on that front. This one I didn't feel actually scared by, but it was pretty gross things happening there in the book. 3.5 stars. That would make it my
Tem coisas estranhas no livro, hein, que ela falou.
lowest rated Stephen King book so far, which is not bad at all. So this is my going stack of every Stephen King I've read so far, but let's go read some more. I got 3 Stephen King
King books and this calendar for 2026.
I'm back from the store with my new Stephen King books, but before I show you those, I'd like to show you something that does not require going to the store. And that, of course, is Book of the Month, who is sponsoring this video. As you can see, I have tons of their books on my bookshelf here. They're a monthly subscription service that has a
Eu não sei como que é, porque eu acho que não tem 1000 livros aí. Para ser considerado uma biblioteca, tem que ter mais de 1000 livros, tá bem? Mas é muito bonito esse aí, sabe? Esse treco aí essa estante, eu acho legal. Só não dormiria embaixo, porque vai que um dia cai, deve doer.
team of readers who reads a ton of stuff and then picks them for the month in a bunch of different genres, and then you get to choose from that curated selection what your box is going to be. It just means like plus a free hat,
Propaganda, eu esqueci
which is an incredible book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. That's what they call it on the side. And when I was reading online how these connect, I was so confused, but then reading the back of this book, it sounds like we've got the same
Parece a mesma coisa, a capa, né?
cast, Bill Hodges, Jerome Robinson, and Holly Gibney teaming up to stop some sort of attack from happening. And even though I didn't give a glowing review in this one, that cast of characters was honestly heartwarming. And so I actually do think I would really like to read this. And then of course I got Holly, which is such a recent book for him, but it connects, and the lady checking me out said that she wishes she had read this trilogy before Holly, and she loved this one so much, and she loves Holly, but she had so many questions. So I think I'm on a good track reading this trilogy first. And then this is the kicker. I don't know if you've been seeing the trailers for the movie The Running Man. It has Glenn Powell in it. The director is Edgar Wright, who's done Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So I was really excited for that movie to come out. I had no idea that it was a Stephen King novel, and it's really not even that long. So I think this would be super fun to try to read this right now as fast as I can, and then book my tickets and watch it in the theater because I don't want it to leave the theater. And how fun would that be? I also just watched The Long Walk in theaters, which is from a Stephen King novel. I don't even need to read that book yet to know that the book was better than that movie. The lady checking me out also said that she loved this movie. So new goal, read this and go to the movie theater. So let's start. I'm in my Stephen King lair, got a cup of hot coffee, and I'm gonna start The Running Man. Woohoo! Oh, did you see that?
Nossa.
Splashed coffee on my jeans. Oh, this is a dystopian book. Oh my gosh, I love dystopian. This is such a great surprise.
Não, e o cachorrinho ali se divertindo, velho.
In this book, Stephen King talks about how to write, and his famous quote is, "The path to HE double hockey sticks is lined with adverbs." Adverbs like softly, crazily, hollowly, awkwardly, and quickly. So whenever he uses them, I notice it so much because he hates them, but he still uses them sometimes. And this is the most I've ever seen him use them in this one paragraph. You know who else who uses them that I love? Emily Henry. There are so many adverbs in the first few chapters of this, and they're the best things I've ever read. I am in no way saying I know how to write better than Stephen King. It just goes to show that writing is still subjective. My coffee's gone and I'm now on page 54, and I'm loving the setup of this so much. I love a good dystopian novel, and I did not know I could get that from Stephen King.
Mano, esse vídeo tá me dando vontade de ler. Só um momentinho. Eu sempre mostro esse livro, né? O Capitã de Areia. Mas é porque eu tô na página 84. E tem... E tem 284. Mas eu não leio, desculpa.
Especially to watch a movie made out of it right after. This is so exciting. In this dystopian world, we're following Richards. He's a married man and he has a daughter who is sick, and it seems like a lot of people in this world are sick with...
Mas hoje eu vou ler. Eu vou ler um pouquinho. Mano, eu vou tentar. Constância, velho. Um pouquinho cada dia. Porque tem dia que eu leio, aí tem dia que eu não leio, aí eu fico mais de semana sem ler, aí fico mais de mês sem ler, aí eu não leio. Aí depois pô, que vergonha, né? A leitura enaltece o homem.
Respiratory issues, but they don't have any access to earning money, going to a doctor, or getting medicine. It seems like one of the only ways to do that is to enroll in this program, which is basically a TV network, and it chooses what show you can be on, and all of them are dangerous, but they pay your family money for being on these shows. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, it sounds like, where people at home will just tune in and watch people die in like a game show format, and he gets chosen for one that pays really well, but it's the most dangerous, and in 6 years they've had no survivors, and it's called The Running Man. The actual game show has not started yet, but the setup is complete, and I'm so excited to dive in, and I really hope that the movie follows this plot pretty closely because I would love to see this come to life. And now that I'm reading this, Glenn Powell seems much too cheery to play this role, so I'm curious how they changed up this book to that movie. Also, I forgot to mention, it's set in the year 2025. What are the odds that I'm reading it in the year 2025? And it was published in 1983. So that is the far off date that he thought of, which is so crazy.
Nossa, foi escrito em 1983 e estavam fazendo uma referência em 2025.
And like I was mentioning earlier, I kept seeing adverbs, so I also looked up when On Writing was published, which was in 2000, the year I was born, which is pretty cool that his opinions here were even different from what he had published previously. And through 60-something books, he has improved and changed his opinion.
Quantos livros esse cara tem, velho? Agora eu tô curioso. Quantos livros Stephen King escreveu? Mano, mais de 80, velho. Que cara doido, né, velho?
Opinions about writing, and this is probably still going to be an amazing book. Can you tell I'm saying all these things to make myself feel better as an aspiring author? I think I've read over 500 books, and not once have I read that a character farted until this one. Genuinely baffled me. And of course it would be Stephen King who wrote it. He's the only one willing. I'm on page 264 and I'm eating this up. I just watched a video that he released through Simon & Schuster on Instagram talking about where and why he wrote this book. He said he was snowed in, so he spent the week writing this book. 1 week. Wrote the whole thing. I'm so invested. Let's finish it.
Nossa, que poltrona confortável ali, ó. No braço dela, ela é mais acolchoada. Não dá pra você deitar de lado igual ela tava no começo aí.
Good morning, guys. It's the next day again, and I finished The Running Man yesterday. I would now consider this to be his most bingeable book that he's written that I've read. This would be my 7th book that I've read by him. I've said this many times, but I just love a high stakes book, and there have never been higher stakes than in this one, where he has 30 days to be hunted by the entire world as well as professional hunters on live TV. So there's never a second where it stops being the most action-packed, tension-filled story, and I had no idea how he would end this, and I really enjoyed how he chose to. And now I'm so excited to watch the movie, but we're not going to until after I read a third Stephen King book. But this is an easy 4.5 stars. It was also fascinating to see his writing style and see all of the adverbs. It definitely feels like the most unpolished, amateurish version of Stephen King I've ever read, and this is the closest to the beginning of his career that I've ever read. And it's so inspiring that he can be such a prolific and famous and talented author and still have work that even he would disagree with, you know, where he writes a craft book and says don't write like this, and then he did write like that. It kind of just gives me a sigh of relief of like, you have to start somewhere and you have to be worse than what you
O cara gosta tanto de escrever que escreveu um livro de como escrever livro. O cara é maluco.
will one day be, but you can never be that one thing in the future unless you are less good at some point. And obviously, an amazing book, 4.5 stars. It's just really fun to read something from his earlier days of writing, because obviously now he is so experienced, which brings me to the next book that I want to read by him, which is Holly. I just feel like I'm going to like this book. Is it because it's gonna follow a female character? Probably.
E porque é um livro mais novo também.
But I'm also just curious to go to a 2022 release in comparison to 1983 and see how his writing
2020.
improves.
Ele lançou um em 2022 e o outro em 84. Acho que é 84 que ela falou.
It's gonna follow a female character probably, but I'm also just curious to go to a 2022 release in comparison to 1983 and see how his
2022, 1983.
writing improves. I started this last night actually, and I only got 19 pages in, but right off the bat, so intriguing. A man named Jorge gets kidnapped in his own neighborhood and he's locked in a basement right now, and I gotta find out what happens.
O cachorro tá na cama, a menina tá deitada no chão, sentada no chão.
Right now it's taking place during the 2020, 2021 stuff, which shall not be named lest YouTube strike me. It's the next day and I'm on page 260 of Holly. In this book, Holly gets hired by a grieving mother whose daughter Bonnie has gone missing. And as the reader, they show you right up front this old couple who is kidnapping people and eating them for health in their old age. So that's the horror part of this. And I'm watching as Holly is trying to track.
Então vou fazer o seguinte, velho, eu preciso de metas, tá? Eu preciso de metas na minha vida. Então eu tô na página 83. O livro tem 283 páginas, 284, são 200, né? Sabe fazer conta de menos. Eu tenho até essa semana para ler isso aqui. Hoje é quinta-feira. Provavelmente eu não vou ler muito hoje, mas eu tenho hoje, sexta, sábado e domingo para ler tudo isso aqui. Porque não é possível. Eu preciso dessa meta. Até domingo, domingo eu tenho que voltar aqui e falar com vocês que eu consegui. Tá bom? Então tá fechado, fechado.
This down, so it's just a ton of conversations with a ton of different people.
Pera aí, gente, hoje eu tô meio que desviado, mas eu vou até anotar no meu quadro de avisos pra mim mesmo. Pera aí. Qual que é o nome do livro mesmo? Capitães de Areia. Pronto, agora tá registrado pra eu não esquecer também. E toda vez que eu sentir preguiça de ler o livro, eu vou ler ali e eu vou sentir vergonha.
People. And like I was saying earlier, this takes place during 2021, and I think a little bit before or after. And at least out of what I've read so far, this is the most political I've seen Stephen King be. But yeah, it's going good so far. It's like typical Stephen King style, a little slower, I'd say. Very similar pace to Mr. Mercedes though, so I think that's just how these crime thrillers go. Also, it's 3 p.m. and I just booked tickets to go watch The Running Man at 7 p.m. So we'll see if I can finish 120 pages before then. If not, gotta go watch The Running Man, and I'll give you my review of that compared to the book as well. Update like 2 seconds later, but this is now officially the second book I've ever read that a character has farted. At least this time it was an old person. Still shocking.
Ryan 3000.
Watched The Running Man last night and I am so excited to come back here and report. It was so good. I don't know what the reviews were talking about. This is probably a testimony to not reading the reviews on a book or a movie before going and watching it, but it was amazing. And all of my own personal reservations, thinking that they were gonna buy Stephen King's IP from the book and then completely throw it out the window and make their own movie, was not true at all. It was so exact for so much of the movie. All of the character names are the exact same. All the characters act the same way, and almost beat for beat, they hit the same exact things in the book, which was so cool to see it come to life.
Isso é bom, velho. O filme ser fiel ao livro. Lógico que o livro consegue usar a imaginação, vai ficar mais barato também para a pessoa imaginar do jeito que ela é tudo. E quando transforma em filme fica uma merda, mas. Porque não faz as mesmas coisas, né? Mas, pelo que ela tá falando, esse livro aí, o filme ficou top.
because there was enough budget for it and it looked amazing. You are on the edge of your seat the entire time. And for Ryan to come watch a movie with me that's 2 hours long and not get bored once is very difficult, and he loved this movie. And it really made me think, at the beginning of this story, you know that Ben Richards' daughter is sick with something that can't be cured unless he goes to get new dollars, which is like the money that he needs. And he's watching his wife try to work for the money. And that sort of desperation is what causes him to go to the network and be put on the show. And that's such a universal, understandable reason to be desperate, is to take care of your family. So right from the jump, you're so bought in and you never think about it twice. So I was just thinking about how important it is for the motivation of a character right at the start of a book to be that compelling, because if that starts off shaky, then you're gonna spend the entire movie or book working against that to convince me to care. But this one works so well because you just do immediately. It makes perfect sense. You don't question it. It was so good. There were movie reviews saying that they didn't see the Edgar Wright in this movie, which is the director. I mean, I've only seen Hot Fuzz and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World by this director, but from what I can gather, what they mean by that is this very like video game, crazy editing style. And I saw that all throughout this movie because I feel like the story itself lends itself to that so well because it's a TV show. So every couple of minutes it cuts back to like a hologram TV show, and it was also so funny. I'm so happy because I've been watching a lot of movies lately, and especially new ones at the theater. I have not left feeling that satisfied, and I'm so happy that this one was actually good and that I had read the book like 2 days before. It's just the perfect experience. But the book I have not finished yet is Holly. I'm 306 pages into this, and I think there's like 440. It's getting real interesting though, because a lot of the book she's just gathering information from different sources, but now we're finally seeing she's getting closer and closer, which means the climax is coming, and I'm very curious what is going to happen to Holly. I don't know if she's going to be in danger or not. Let's find out. I just found out that Stephen King was 75 when he wrote this. That is so awesome. I finished Holly last night, and this had one of the, I'm gonna say something crazy, one of the best endings I think a Stephen King book has had. I don't know where I was reading this, but somewhere I was reading that everyone has a weakness, even the greatest authors of all time.
Falando que é um dos melhores que ela leu, é isso mesmo?
Like Stephen King, and apparently people think his weakness is endings, which I liked the ending of The Running Man, but I think the movie actually made it a better ending, so I can kind of see why someone would say that, but this one really got me. This one gets pretty creepy, and for some reason Holly is just such a lovable character. I understand why there's so many books with her in it. I'm gonna give this 4.25 stars. My only note about these crime thrillers and the Bill Hodges trilogy and the Holly books is that the pace of them just feels a bit slower because they're just slowly gathering
4,5 de 5 é muito boa essa nota.
information the entire time. Whereas in 11/22/63, which is a massive book, I feel like there were just so many events that this entire thing doesn't get boring, except for maybe 50 pages in the middle, but it took more discipline for me to get through these. And they kind of feel like old man books to me. Like I could just picture sitting in a chair and these books being like a long walk in your mind, and they're enjoyable, and the ending is a nice payoff. Way less adverbs than The Running Man, just as I suspected. Out of the 3 that I read in this video, I would highly recommend The Running Man, the book, and the movie. So enjoyable. And of course, I do not think Stephen King is overhyped. I already knew that starting the video.
Então, eu que sou analfabeto, porque tá escrito no título da menina aqui, I read Stephen King books for a week again. Eu achei que ela ia ler um por dia. Mas ela falou que vai ler o Stephen King, os livros dele, por uma semana. Não falou que era um a cada dia. É isso aí. Ela leu 3 livros em uma semana, pô. Coisa pra caramba, tá, gente? Eu que sou analfabeto mesmo.